What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the finale Bachelor in Paradise recap. We have made it through this season. Congratulations to everyone who has endured all the craziness. And we have a fantastic episode for you to break this episode down. Did that even make sense? Manny Gutierrez is back in studio.
Baby, we're back.
Manny is back for the second time recapping. Was it a Bachelor in Paradise? Was it Bachelor?
No, it was I think it was Bachelor.
Either way, the audience loved you.
Well, hi guys.
You are here back.
I am a fanatic. I am a Bachelor nation.
Yeah.
I am part of the nation.
We love a...
Got your citizenship to Bachelor.
Yes, I am a citizen, and I will not be getting it revoked.
We love a professional,
Yes.
an expert, if they will.
Yes, absolutely.
Before we get into the recap, just a couple housekeeping notes. We have a great Ask Nick episode for you out. More gaslighting conversations, lessons learned on maybe the risk of just throwing out that word and the drama that can unfold, and our ability to still stand up for ourselves, set our boundaries, enforce our boundaries without ever maybe having to, I don't know, use that word. But anyways, it's a fantastic episode. There were some technical issues for those of you who maybe listened to our Ask Nick episode and like maybe heard a story we've used before. That has been fixed. We've taken that repeat story out. The person responsible for it is now serving a 30-year prison sentence.
Life in prison.
No parole.
No parole.
No parole.
We apologize. That's what happens to Chrissy. You know,
Absolutely.
In the
It's really serious here.
we like to think we're more professional. Anyways, I digress. Also, we have a fantastic episode with Emily DiDonato. Is probably out by the time you're getting to this episode. Keep listening for that episode. If you don't know who Emily is, well, just a wonderful woman with great perspective, but has got her start in the modeling arena. She's been a Sports Illustrated model. She's big time. Also, first pregnancy and married, so a lot of perspective on entrepreneur. She's doing a multifaceted woman who's also a Bachelor fan. We don't talk too much about that, but wonderful conversation with Emily. I've been wanting to have Emily on for a long time, and she did not disappoint. One of my I really just enjoy talking to her. I don't want to be hyperbolic and be like, they all seem like my favorite episodes, but you won't want to miss that. So keep listening for that episode after you get through this one. Is there anything else we're missing? We have I guess a week off next week. Thank God for everyone.
Oh yeah, until we go right into the Bachelorette.
Yeah, we're working on getting Ivan on.
Ooh.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see if it happens. This week I think is about the couples. We gotta support all the happy love stories.
Absolutely.
We don't want Ivan drama taking that, so we'll see if it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll just leave it at that. We'll see if it happens.
I would like to know what happened.
I would like to see. We would like to hear Ivan's take on it. So look out for that. I don't know, and we'll see what happens. Before we get into Bachelor in Paradise recapping, let's talk about the new host of The Bachelor.
Yeah, he just got announced.
Jesse Palmer. Reactions. I think we won't spend too much time on this, but it's worthy to talk about. It also still seems completely unclear. Is Jesse Palmer the host of The Bachelor? Is he now the permanent host for all things Bachelor, like Bachelor in Paradise, Bachelorette?
Oh yeah.
Or is it just The Bachelor? I don't feel like they've necessarily made that clear. I feel like it's going to be for The Bachelor and Bachelorette. I feel like they're looking for a permanent host for The Bachelor. Bachelor in Paradise, who knows? I think a lot of people were underwhelmed.
I was whelmed. I wasn't very oh my God, that's so crazy. Amazing. Oh. I was just oh, okay. I wasn't I literally did not think about it. I was oh.
I was time to Google Jesse Palmer.
Yeah, and I had seen him on he was a host of a baking show I watched.
Yeah.
And so I was oh my God, he does hosting stuff.
So I think for a lot of people, and here are my thoughts, is that I think for a lot of people, including myself, thought this was an opportunity for the show to bring in a host that could add some additional value and bring the show up to be a little bit more relatable to the times, and maybe bring in a little bit more, I don't know, like help guide more progressive conversations. Mm-hmm. And what's clear to me is that the show made an active decision to say, we're not interested in that. We just want to go back to our roots. I don't think they're interested in having a host be a mentor. For example, like the Caitlyn and Tayshia role that they've been playing on Katie's season, I suspect to see more of the same on Michelle's. The mentor role, I think they're actively deciding that they don't want their host to do that.
Got it.
Is my guess. Because, like, for example, like Jesse Palmer, he was the Bachelor like 15 years ago. To call him an alumni relative to like Wells or myself or Ben Higgins or Caitlyn or Tayshia, I think is disingenuous. The show is completely changed. It's a different audience. Mm-hmm. I don't think he has any active relationships with the producers on the ground making the show.
Yeah.
But he has a relationship with ABC. He works for ESPN. He's calling football games. He calls X's and O's. He hosted The Proposal. Things. He's been hosting the surfer shows. So there's a lot of synergy there. And then I think there's a cross-promotion opportunity. I think it was a very business-like decision.
Yeah.
I think they're probably aware of the fact that the show is hoping maybe for a little bit more diversity with their decision or something a little bit more exciting. My guess is ABC took a couple big swings at a couple big names. Didn't happen, and they were just like, fuck it, let's just go with Jesse Palmer. And I think they opted not to go with a more recent alumni like a Wells or Caitlyn and Tayshia or myself or Ben, because Jesse again has the actual hosting experience. And like, for me, I was just thinking, like, aren't you going to get a host that's going to do more than just remind the people watching it who are like watching it on their phones that there's one more rose left? Like,
yeah,
they literally, like, are they going to hire a host that's going to do more than just count? Yeah. And I think the answer is no. I think, all jokes aside, I think they're literally just going to look for Jesse to come in on
be the
certain
face of
beats.
It, essentially.
Probably be more of I feel like because he's not very familiar, he's probably going to be more authoritative.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
He'll come in and be like,
he's a stranger in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he'd be like, hey, this is what's happening. Because I thought to myself when I first heard about it, like, what the fuck would Jesse Palmer say to Katie when the whole Greg thing was
getting
going?
her out of the bathroom? Jesse Palmer,
like, what the fuck is he gonna?
It wouldn't happen.
What is he gonna say? And the truth is, like, he's not gonna say anything because if Jesse Palmer was a host, they just wouldn't have brought him in. They just let Katie cry.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe it would be a woman producer who, like, they've done that before. Mm-hmm. So they're not gonna do that. They're just not gonna have those mentor roles. I think you're gonna. And whatever you think of, like, the role or job that Caitlyn and Tayshia have done, whether you liked it or disliked it, like, I think the biggest disadvantage of both of them had was the fact there was two of them. It's a little clunky that you could tell they were both trying to, like, split time.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I thought they were fine. And I thought Caitlyn in that moment was great. Is like a woman supporting woman.
Same,
and, like,
I loved it.
Caitlyn didn't say much, but it was still nice to see
she could empathize
them
in a very
and
real
empathize.
way.
And that was a nice moment. But did that change the show? No. Like, say what you want about the role that Caitlyn and Tayshia are doing. Like, it didn't impact the show at all. Mm-hmm. It had no, like, the show, that's not the lasting impression of Katie's season, like, at all. There's so many other, like, memorable moments that it's not about Caitlyn or Tayshia. So the show is just, my guess is, just said, doesn't matter. We're just going to have someone we trust. We're winning Monday nights or Tuesday nights, whatever fucking night it's on. Mm-hmm. And we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. We're not interested in having a host do more. We're not interested in being a mentor role. You're just not going to see those moments. Like, this new Bachelor guy who we don't know anything about yet, like, he's a kind of a former football player. Like, maybe there'll be, like, Jesse giving a weird football metaphor, right? When talking to the new Bachelor.
Let's go toss some.
That the new Bachelor is going to be like, hey man, I'm just, like, not sure. And he's just like, when it's fourth down, you just, like, got to go for it instead of punching
kick
the
the
ball.
Field goal.
Only 3 more yards to the touchdown line. We just got to lunge.
I think that's the most we can hope for. Like, Here's the one challenge I think here's the one thing that I am curious about, and I wonder if ABC considered, is that Chris Harrison did not lose his job for something he did or didn't do while hosting the show. He lost his job for something he said in an interview.
Right.
And the host of the show is expected to be the spokesperson of the show. Mm-hmm. And recently, the show and the audience has wanted to have conversations about things like racism, diversity, emotional abuse,
gender dynamics, queers, like you know, with Demi, like
everything.
Bisexual relationships. And is Jesse Palmer the guy to have these conversations? Like, I don't know. I don't know Jesse Palmer. I know he's been calling X's and O's. Like, I don't know if we had Jesse on.
I mean, clearly he's media trained.
And he's media trained.
Totally. Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, historically, you got away with a host that was just more like, hey, man, like, I'm just here. Like,
just a suit.
It's just a super like, hey, guess what? Most dramatic season ever, you know? But like the show has evolved. The audience has evolved. There's a greater expectation. The show, I don't know if the show wants to be, but the show has become like ingrained in pop culture and society and social media are wanting to have these conversations. Mm-hmm. The show is about dating and relationships. And now more than ever, whether I agree, whether people should be just saying the word gaslighting, that's the stuff that's going on. And having conversations about, is that what we're seeing? Is that what this is? Trying to bring some levity, having a thoughtful discussion. Like, that's where Rachel Lindsay tried to have a thoughtful discussion with Chris Harrison, and Chris Harrison just stepped in it, right?
Yeah.
And is Jesse Palmer either going to be media trained enough to like ignore that conversation, or is he not going to be the spokesperson? Are they going to be very careful of the conversations they're going to let him have, or is he going to want to have? How long can they get away with that? You know what I'm saying? Like, Bachelor Nation wants to have these conversations, and they're having them on podcasts and things like that. And I'm like, at what point when Jesse Palmer gets asked about like, do you think Greg was gaslighting Katie? What the fuck is Jesse Palmer going to say?
I don't even know if he's going to know. Is he going to even know the answers to that?
And that's the thing is, I don't know. He could, like, maybe he's an incredibly emotionally intelligent and articulate guy, but I think there's certain things where it's
we have no reason to think
that the identities he holds is like white dude, and that's not disqualifying of like him being able to have insights on race, but it does mean that, you know, he is coming at these conversations with a limited perspective.
He's been calling football games with a predominantly male audience. He hasn't necessarily been listening to women's stories and empathizing with their like what they have to go through.
We have no idea. Maybe he'll really pleasantly surprise us, but it's not a choice where it seems like those were things that were like paramount to the search or that were to their consideration.
I think it was a business decision. It was, we have a relationship with this guy. We like him. He's polished. He's good. I mean, I don't know him, but he seems like a nice enough guy. We were familiar with him. He's hosted other shows. He's working for our sister network, ESPN. There's some cross promotion opportunities and like whatever. Well, it's like, Jesse, can you say there's one more rose left? Great. All right. You're hired. But I'm just really wondering what role Jesse will have in the press as it relates to discussing this show, and will he be someone that the show relies on to like drive thoughtful conversations about some of these topics that Bachelor Nation so desperately wants to have? And I guess we'll see.
And we shall see.
Rothy's, baby, that's right. For all you ladies who have already experienced the magic that is Rothy's shoes and handbags made from recyclable plastic that's both stylish, comfortable, and long-lasting. They now have it available for men's. That's right. I've been begging them. I've been criticizing them. What about us dudes? Us men don't get enough. But seriously, Rothy's is so good that I wanted to, you know, I was seeing all my women friends wear the Rothy's, all these different designs. They would talk about how like they would get it right away and put them on them, and it would be so comfortable, no blisters, no break-in period, and boom, throw them in a washing machine, good as new. 6 months later, I now have the benefit of experiencing that same magic. So, ladies listening, get your Rothy's for you, get your bags, but also get the men in your life some really comfortable driving loafers, men's sneakers they have available. So if you're looking for some new stylish, amazing, comfortable footwear for your man, try Rothy's. That's right. Forbes calls Rothy's men's shoes a travel must-have. Perfect for the airport to slip on, slip off. You know, if your guy is wearing fucking sandals to the airport, get him some Rothy's. Don't let your man be disgusting and embarrass himself in public at the airport. Get him some Rothy's. They're just as comfortable. They're just as easy to slip on and slip off, and he won't embarrass himself. You won't have to be embarrassed next to your man wearing flip-flops. And if you're not wearing flip-flops, just get them because they're amazing. Over 5,000 near-perfect reviews to help you welcome fall fashion and style. Rothy's is doing something special. That's right. They're giving us the chance to share their super rare opportunity with our listeners for a limited time. Right now, you can get $20 off your first pair of Rothy's at rothys.com/VIALL. That is ROTHYS.com/VIALL. Head to rothys.com/VIALL to find your new favorites today. Fable. Oh my God, the dinnerware from Fable. It looks good on your plate. We used it last night. Last night, Natalie and I made a delicious pasta dish that we often make. There's something good about eating salad and pasta off of a salad pasta bowl. Because oftentimes if like amateurs like we used to be would use like a plate or like a cereal bowl. No, be an adult and get some really great dinnerware. They have plates and they have cereal bowls, but like their pasta bowls are a goddamn dream. And they're so beautiful that we actually display them on these shelves that we made in the kitchen to like make our house look homier. We don't even hide them in the cabinets. They're so good. Eco-friendly packaging, recycled clay, 100% non-toxic. Take 15% off your order with code VIALL. Go to the website fablehome.co. That's FABLEHOME.co, not .com. .co. That's right. Head over to fablehome.co and use the code VIALL for 15% off your first purchase. If you're looking to upgrade your dinnerware at such a reasonable price, look no further than fablehome.co. Well, let's get into the episode, shall we?
The recap.
Manny, this episode opens up with the Abigail and Noah breakout.
Oh, God.
Also, but before I do get into that, I just want to say, I really, in the intro, when Little John goes like really soft and like sincere and empathetic, love it.
It's like the cutest, also most jarring thing in the entire world.
He's like, and Noah and Abigail broke up. But then Joe and Serena. It's like the range for Little John. Little John has so much
Chef's
range.
Kiss for that range.
Excuse me.
Little John does
Little
both.
John.
Get you a Little John that does both.
Oh, got it. So shout out to Little John.
We all need Little John in our life.
Just really enjoyed that. Back to Noah and Abigail. I had thought that we had moved on from that breakup, but this episode opens up
with more.
Abigail in the bathroom.
Bawling.
Interestingly enough, I pivoted on whose side I was on. I feel like a lot of people last week as it ended, at least, understood Noah, right? Because usually when, especially in this show, when a man is breaking up with a woman on the show, it's hard to navigate that and not be the bad guy.
Got it.
It's just, it is what it is. It's harder to do.
Got it.
But I think a lot of people understood Noah's point of view. He's like, I think I'm falling in love with you. Like I'm pulling, and like I don't know. Maybe I don't want to pull anymore. And Abigail just kind of sat there and didn't know what to say. Maybe she has a hard time. Whatever her reason is, it's not the end of the world. But I understood Noah. And then this opened up, and at first I was like, oh, maybe I see Abigail's point of view. But before I give kind of how I thought, what was your take on the Abigail and Noah? And as it started to pivot from Abigail saying, well, I was going to tell you I was falling in love, what did you think?
Well, I was like super confused actually, because I thought the entire time that Noah was being super open and honest with his feelings. And I can relate to Noah in the way of being like, okay, if I'm giving and giving and giving and I feel like I'm not getting anything back, I start to turn this like switch off in my head where I'm like, they're not interested. I need to be uninterested too.
Yeah.
So I think in my mind, if he's over here being like, oh, well, I'm falling in love with you. No response from her from the last week. She's just literally just like blank stare.
It's a very vulnerable position.
It's a very vulnerable thing. So as soon as that happens and you don't get that receiving back, I'm like, okay, well, let me just turn this off real quick because I just became open. I just got shut down. Let me start to not like you anymore.
Totally. And then if you're Noah, not only that, then you start kind of reflecting on the relationship and go, well, wait a second, I've been polling this whole time. And maybe you're just not there. And that's okay.
Totally.
But
But your feelings are your feelings.
Exactly.
Like, if it starts to get turned off, then like that's just what it is.
So this episode opens up with Abigail being like, kind of like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
Abigail's just like, wait, she's getting angry. She's just like, why are you breaking up with me? This seems like bullshit. And for a moment I was like, Abigail was kind of winning me over with like, wait a second. Why?
Yeah.
My first thought was, Abigail has a point. Like, if you are going to open up to someone and say, hey, I think I'm falling in love with you. What, do you get like, does the person receiving it like a 24-hour window to like, don't they get to marinate on this like kind of big declaration?
And she said she didn't hear it initially, that like kind of the way he said it in conversation.
Yeah, like in passing.
Really, it hadn't registered for her fully. So to your point,
what do you mean?
In conversation, like he kind of slipped it into conversation. So I think she was saying it didn't fully like register to her as like that I'm falling in love with you.
Do we buy that?
Yeah.
I think that you can hear something and not realize that it was said until later on and be like, wait, did that happen in the conversation? Especially if you're already having a conversation about something else and it just gets slipped in.
They though? I felt like this was like a TV moment. We all watched Noah say it.
I think to Noah, it was a moment, but I think Abigail and us, but Abigail, I don't think it was a moment for her. Is what I'm saying.
Okay, fair enough. But
and I love Abigail. Let me just say that I fucking love her.
This has nothing to do with whether we don't love or Abigail. Like,
it is what it is.
Yeah. We're not taking sides.
No, right.
But at the same time, so at first I'm like, Abigail was winning me over, right? Mm-hmm. But then I thought to myself, well, hold on. Yes, that's how the show is. Like that's why we are able to recap. That's why we're able to have these discussions, because what the show does, and sometimes it's frustrating, and it's because it's what we get such a visceral reaction from the audience, is that the show is trying to take as much as it can real world conversations and relationships and make it seem like this is a crazy world, but real situations still work in this real world. For example, it's just like, it would be a normal thing to like have a declaration of love and like give that person like a moment to let it marinate, and 24 hours later be like, hey, I love you too. But this is Bachelor World. Things move insanely fast. So insanely fast that like Mari and Kenny have been, back together for like a week and a half and are now engaged.
And they're like, we've overcome such adversity. No other couple on the beach has been through this. And it's like, y'all had one miscommunication.
So like, things happen fast. And so I can understand why Noah's just like, wait, like this was a big bump in the road relative to the world that we're in. Not to mention, like Abigail, when she said, oh, wait, but I was going to say I love you. At first I was like, oh, but Noah, there you go. That should change the game. But Abigail didn't say that right away. It wasn't like as soon as Noah started breaking up with her, Abigail was like, wait, before you say anything, I'm falling in love with you. She didn't do that.
Right.
She waited till like they literally had at least 2 full conversations. They had one conversation, then they like separated and like went to the bathroom and then they came back, talked some more, and then she just kind of was like, but I was also. That seemed like a very convenient time to be like, well, just so you know, I was gonna say that. Like,
right.
Maybe you were, maybe you weren't.
Right.
I don't know, but it seemed like Noah at that point was like, I just don't think you're gonna like. I don't know. It seemed like Noah had made a decision. He didn't buy it, and
what did you both make of the way that Noah broke up with her? Because I think there was one point where he'd said a few different times, "You're not my person," and then at the end of the episode last week, Abigail had been like, "Please stop saying I'm not your person," and Noah said it again. And I'm just curious, like overall, what did you think of his strategy for ending?
Strategy? I saw a guy trying his best to. When you break up with someone, as we talk about like on Ask Nick stuff, like the kindest thing when you break up with anyone is to be as honest as possible while trying to be as kind as possible, but don't be so kind that you don't tell the truth. Exactly. And the truth can hurt by just simply being honest so you can set them free. So you're not saying things like maybe and we'll see, and you're not trying to lead them on because you're afraid they're going to cry or hurt their feelings. You have to be direct. And that sometimes can come across as curt and short and sometimes even insensitive. But that insensitivity will sometimes allow a person to move on, right?
Absolutely.
So like, I felt Noah was as gracious as he tried to be, and he tried to like drive home a point to say, yeah, this is my decision. This is how I feel. And you might think I'm the bad guy, but this, so I felt like Noah did a fine job. Like, I don't know if everyone, like, you know, people watching it might have been triggered by this experience or the breakup they might have had, or felt like, you know, I'm sure a lot of people could see it as like, Noah just like threw out like an I love you and then like just decided to bail.
Back. Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? And I could totally understand why some people saw it that way. But either way, he made a decision. He was pulling Abigail. She didn't open up. It's Bachelor World. Things are heightened. Everything's extreme. So he made a rapid decision. The show seemed like they wanted to, for a moment, act like they often do. Like, this isn't a crazy world with crazy stakes in a limited time. And they wanted to like paint a picture and give an alternative point of view of like, wait, are you not allowed to like let things marinate?
Yeah.
And that's for the audience to sit there and for us to discuss. But I thought he did a decent job. Philo, that's right. For all you people out there that love watching your favorite movies and favorite TV shows and don't want to pay an arm and a leg for channels you don't need and don't watch, Philo is your streaming platform that you need to get. I started using streaming platforms, Philo being one that just absolutely saved me so much money. I was paying like $150 for like cable, all these like movie channels and blah, 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 and then a bunch of shows I never freaking watched. And now I just like have Philo. It's great. Over 60 premium TV channels, a massive on-demand library of top-tier beloved shows and movies to watch anytime I want. Unlimited DVR that lets me save shows for up to a year. I can stream Philo on up to 3 different devices at the same time. Philo is super easy to set up with no hassles and no contract. That's right. I asked my friends at Philo if I could offer you guys a special deal to try Philo, and they said, yeah, of course. We love your audience. So I got you a 25% off your first 2 months. What's 25% off at $25? I don't know. You're barely paying anything for great TV. Go to philo.tv/VIALL. That's philo.tv/VIALL. philo.tv/VIALL.
What part I screamed in the episode is when they're walking way out of the bathroom and Noah puts his arm on Abigail and she's like, and she like throws his arm off her shoulder. I was like, ah! I was screaming at that part. But because it's like you can understand her emotion and you can understand his. And I think that's like the part that makes it so like give and take and such a pull on our heartstrings. Because like I can understand being Abigail, I can understand being Noah. And that's why it's like so, in a way, really real. Because it's like I get both sides.
Totally. Overall, to your excellent point, I don't think anyone's a bad guy here. I don't know if anyone did anything wrong. It's a breakup, and breakups include hurt feelings and suck.
Yeah, they suck. They're not fun. Like no one's like he's literally crying to her, like literally crying, being like, "I'm so sorry that I'm hurting you right now, but I have to do what's right for me." And she's like, well, "What the fuck?"
And maybe her too. Because we always do this in breakups, right? We don't even know, and maybe Abigail doesn't know in that moment what her real feelings are.
Right.
How often do we change how we feel in the moment when we start feeling rejected or we start losing something we didn't even think we wanted all that much, but they break up with us and they beat us to it?
Yes.
How many people listening have been in relationships where you're just like, I don't even know if I don't know if I like them anymore.
Right.
We have so many problems, and out of nowhere they're like, hey, I think we should break up, and you're like, wait, babe,
what do you mean?
Like, I love you, so like,
yes.
That's a
huge factor.
That could have been an Abigail reaction. So like maybe Abigail left and thought, you know what, we aren't. Like there is a reason why I didn't say it back right away. Maybe there is a reason why I didn't open up. And like maybe Abigail will reflect back after leaving that intense situation and appreciate what Noah did for like it could be a better thing for both of them.
I also think that when it comes to like, because even in the episode, she was like, I'm so embarrassed. And it's like, not only are you adding the embarrassment from like getting broken up first, but you're adding the embarrassment of being on national television, getting broken up with first. So it's like, I think there's like this part of it that it's just like the feelings are multiplied because you're literally on national television and being like, oh my God, my feelings are like times 10 because everyone's going to see me getting broken up with instead of being the one that's breaking up first.
I totally.
That's like a huge thing.
Totally
I mean, I can only imagine.
And I love it when they air stuff like that because that's a great point. Abigail saying that I'm so embarrassed. Mm-hmm. That's you saying out loud. There are other reasons other than me losing this relationship that I'm hurting.
Exactly.
You know, and it's not my feeling. It's not the loss of this person or this relationships. It's my ego, my pride, the embarrassment.
The public opinion.
Being
self-image.
Like these are all these variables that go in to how these people feel. And when we were watching it back, we're just like, oh, poor thing. But again, we all, even in real world, we get in, like someone breaks up with us, even if it's not on TV, we think about like what our friends and family are going to say.
Oh, exactly.
Oh, I'm going to have to tell people at work, stuff like that.
Yeah, oh my God, it's the worst. Where it's like, oh, how's that going with that one guy? And you're like, will you stop talking? Yeah. Like, it's the fucking worst.
And we often will stay in shit and stay in relationships and like, yeah, we'll stay in shit. It will stay in relationships that are shit because of all these other factors that have nothing to do with our happiness in the relationship or lack thereof. And then, oh my God, the fallout when Noah, like I love how the show tries to make a bad guy out of Noah for Noah leaving.
I know.
And it's not like, is it the show? I don't know. Like the show, I guess, is doing a good job of, this is a real world thing that happens. You know, Noah leaves, whatever. And then, was it Chelsea? Be like, I can't believe he didn't say goodbye.
But like, do you think he really didn't want to say goodbye? Or that they were like, okay, you got to go?
He probably had no choice. They're probably like, you should go. Also, by the way, like, there have been plenty of times where I thought, this happens. That's the funny thing about this. And on other seasons and other situations, you might think leaving like that, it was the noble thing to do, to not make it about you, to leave gracefully. He has no idea what Abigail's going to do. I love that. Where like Noah and Abigail are like talking to each other like in the hallway, and they're like, they say their final goodbyes and they just walk in separate directions. I thought was kind of hysterical. Like who
that's not normal.
That?
Like it's not, that's weird.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like it's strange,
but it's a show.
But it's a show. Like it's what's. And I bet Noah in that moment he's thinking like Abigail's just gonna get in her car and go. He's gonna get in his car and go. And it's like Abigail gotta have this whole like
she goes
monologue.
She goes back to the party.
Yeah, she needs to go back to the party and talk to
everyone.
Barefoot.
Yes,
with just dirty ass feet.
Dirty feet.
Just real. Just problematic feet.
She's just. It's reality.
That's the realest thing we've seen.
She's like, you know what? I'm crying right now. Fuck my feet. I get it.
I probably can't be in heels right now.
How many times have we like been walking on a dirty floor and then you look, you're like, oh my God, my feet are disgusting.
Oh my God,
absolutely.
Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No. I think Abigail's going to be mortified when she watches that. But like, who cares?
Who cares?
It's fine, Abigail. But she goes back. She tells Chelsea, Mari,
Serena.
And the next 5 minutes of the show made no fucking sense to me. First of all, did I miss something? Because I didn't rewind it back. But why the fuck was Serena crying? And did you make out anything she said?
She was sad that she was leaving. She was devastated for the situation.
I think she was worried. I think she was shaken because a really strong couple on
God.
the beach.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yes.
Oh my God. Hysterically, someone breaks up, and then you get a montage of people like, "Oh my God,
what about me?
The new strongest couple broke up."
But they are voted most likely to succeed.
Oh my God, that was fucking hysterical.
I was fucking dying at the superlatives. I was like, not
most
this.
Most likely to have a happy ever after.
Yes,
break
Noah.
up at the prom barefoot.
Yep. James was just beside himself.
He was like,
"But guys, we literally just said."
Your reenactment makes you want to fucking scream.
He's just like, guys, it's like this.
But they
like,
just want
if
this.
That's not real. Like, what? Who can we trust? What can we trust? If not, who can we trust? Like, the innocence of James,
it's like sweet though.
Is
it's endearing.
Also, I just shout out to James. I mean, the real MVP of this whole season to come in, angel. Generally a sweet angel, have absolutely no substantive relationships. He floated not one.
The closest relationship with Aaron.
Literally.
Yeah, and yet he was on the whole season.
Yeah,
a show that's impressive. The show that's predicated on making connections and musical chairs, and if you don't have a connection, you're gonna go home. And he outlasted
many
by being
so
less of a dick.
By being the most least problematic.
By being least problematic, honest. You're right.
There was one of these episodes, I can't remember which one it was. I literally slid into his DMs and was like, "You're so sweet, and Bachelor in Paradise doesn't deserve you." And like that was it. He never even opened it, which is fine. But like I was like, it just felt like I felt for him in that moment, you know. And like one of the episodes, I can't remember which one it was. I was like, he seems so sweet and kind and nice.
Like a nice guy.
He seems nice.
So I just real props to James for.
Shout out to James.
I don't think people fully appreciate how impressive it is what he did.
I know.
Without being a bad guy.
Without being a bad guy, make no real connections, and be in every episode this season.
He is out here like hanging on by a string.
I've done a lot of things in this franchise, and I really don't know how one would pull that off, but he did. Like he
really did.
It was really impressive. Anywho, his shock and awe of Noah and Abigail breaking up after them receiving like
this award,
the congeniality award or whatever. I don't know what they won. But Serena is like
beside herself, like crying, making.
I literally didn't understand anything she was saying.
It literally was about like her being devastated that she's going, and she's like, I don't know how I can make it here without her. That's literally what she said verbatim. She said, I don't know how I am going to make it here. Like, she's been here the entire time with me with Abigail leaving. So she was devastated about Abigail leaving and devastated the fact that they broke up.
And I think, if anything, what this helps explain, and we mentioned this with Bree and Kit last week, is that everyone there is fully in this bubble. They are fully
enwrapped.
Brainwashed is the only... And it's not because the show and the producers are like evil. Like it is a social experiment. When you lock yourself into a bubble, you will change your reality, and you will start making just hyperbolic decisions. And that is what you're seeing here.
I mean, with no phones, no TV, no nothing. It's like you're literally in a actual bubble.
Yeah. So we're watching it and laughing, and then just being like, what are these people saying? Like, that is why I think reality. They're saying what they're saying, and the stakes are high. The stakes are high because of the show, and obviously there's a lot of talk about engagement, and their decisions are all just kind of warped in this bubble. Mm-hmm. Finally, the cocktail party ends. We go to the rose ceremony. I was so angry. So I said this 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. I'm really mad at the producers. I don't blame Natasha because, again, Natasha deserved better than how she went home. I 100%. Truly fucking hated how, and this is not a disrespect to Ed, even though Ed had a really weird kind of awkward thing with McKenna. And
his whole entrance has been awkward.
Like I really love Ed last week. I thought he was sweet, and he came across as like, let's just make the best of the situation. Love that for Ed. And this is not a disrespect to Ed in this moment, but the fact that Natasha was at a rose ceremony hoping for a rose from Ed is so beneath her.
It's tough.
Like, and honestly, like, there's just no way that you guys are gonna get engaged at then. Like, you guys, like, he came so late. But the reality is that there's just no way.
Like, why is Natasha
waiting for that?
Pretending to like Dr. Joe, and we love Dr. Joe. I think Joe, like, my God! Last
time I was here, we literally interviewed Dr. Joe.
Yeah, thank you.
That's literally what we did. He's amazing,
and a doctor, and like, I feel like he has like Bachelor quality material. Would be an interesting guy, but like, yes, like Natasha in such a late period of time, like, why didn't they just say to Natasha, "Hey, listen, you've been great. You're a rock star. You're one of the stars of our season. I think maybe you should like go home on your own." And I don't fault Natasha because I think she's in the bubble. She's wrapped up in this. And do I wish Natasha was able to like take a moment and say, Natasha, what the fuck? And yes, but I don't fault Natasha because I know the power of that world. And I'm just really mad that they let Natasha stand there hoping for a rose from Ed. Only to not get the rose and just kind of just whimper away.
And she looked so pretty with her gorgeous pop of color lip.
Red
I was
lip.
screaming. I'm like, you look so fucking exciting. Like, she didn't deserve what happened to her.
And I just
throughout the whole season, to be honest.
Yeah, but like why so many how many people have like gone home on their own and been like, hey guys, it's been fun.
Yeah.
I'm gonna remove myself from this and give a goodbye. I mean, fuck, they let fucking Ivan do that. And like Ivan was kind of like had a bad beat in that moment, but he gave the whole like, I'm gonna leave on my own. And maybe that was Ivan's decision. I don't doubt it. But
I wasn't gonna accept your rose, Chelsea, anyway.
I know there are plenty of times where like it might be suggested, be like, hey man, like why don't you just leave on your own? And they don't have to, honestly, but like the ideas floated. And why wasn't that courtesy given to Natasha?
You know what I think it is too? I think that at the core, everyone wants to feel like they're going to be chosen. And I think that the idea of potentially being chosen and Ed picking her is so strong. And that the idea of that's so strong because Natasha has been fucked over the entire season. And I think that like the idea of being like, you know what, I have this connection with Ed. I hope that he picks me is like a very strong feeling.
No, I relate to the feeling.
You know?
And also, to even be on the show, you're someone who's been picked against all odds. So
Absolutely.
It makes sense that you would bring that mentality into the show itself.
And like I said, I'm more critical of the producers here than Natasha. Like, it'd be easy to say, Natasha, why did you, like, you're better than this, you should know better. But yeah,
the feeling, like, it's a strong thing.
It's this late in the game, Natasha's just... you know, probably what happened to her with Brendan. She's trying to validate her experience. She's trying to find a win, and she's not thinking clearly, logically, and not thinking me leaving is a win on my own. I trust that Natasha feels that now, but I just hated that for her.
Yeah,
you wanted to see her cut her losses.
Yes.
Yeah.
I literally was watching it, and we're just like, and again, I'm not trying to rip on Ed here. Like, he seems like for the right
Sweet
person,
guy.
He'll be great. But like that late in the game, there's clearly no real connection between. They had a nice date, whatever.
Right.
And she's sitting there. You saw the look of worry, just like, I just want this rose. And I'm just like, you were fighting over Ed with McKenna. This is so beneath you.
Yeah, honestly, that's exactly how I felt too. And it's devastating seeing her go home in the car, and she's just like truly devastated from the whole experience. And it's just like, I broke for her in that moment. I'm like, you don't deserve any of this shit.
I really hated that for her. So
I hate that for her too.
Justice for Natasha.
Justice for Natasha.
And a lot of this season's drama was on the back of Natasha.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Natasha gave us this season in a very big way.
She carried a lot of weight. She was a heavy lifter.
Thankless job. Thankless
job. We
job.
thank you, Natasha. And some, real. And no offense to Abigail, who like floated through and sat next to Noah in a hot tub all season, only for her to have not responded to Noah and then be like confused and get dirty feet. But like what Natasha did for us, episode after episode, only to like not get Ed's rose.
She
is
fed
such
us
a fucking crime.
She fed us well.
Also,
it's like
I feel like
Thanksgiving dinner.
I also feel like dirty feet is like similar to getting cold feet.
Absolutely.
It's different. I think you should trademark that name.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on.
She deserved more. Period.
The next day happens.
The breakups.
The breakup. The conversations. By the way, no, I'm sorry. We need to discuss Mari coming back after talking. So you got the gossip. The gossip is real. Chelsea and Mari having talked to Abigail.
Oh, yes.
And this woman, they're like, what happened? And Mari just like, well, apparently Noah said that, he doesn't feel this way and he's been feeling it for a long time.
Days.
Noah never uttered those words. That was just a flat out like, telephone game. I'm not saying Mari was lying, but like she just heard Abigail's version and then put her own spin on it, and then moments later,
well, Abigail kind of said that though.
Noah's been playing him the whole time. Mm-hmm. Abigail kind of said that. She implied it, and
she said it, but she didn't include other contextualizing details, which is fine because she's talking to her friends.
He's known for days. She said he's known for days, and I'm like, you can't just like throw that out there.
Because I think in that moment she's processing in real time, and so she's regurgitating all of the takeaways that have been like most hurtful
engraved
to her
in her mind.
And so it's a perfect instance of telephone.
Yeah.
Oh, and you know what? Not trying to pile on Mari here, but I think it's a lesson. We literally saw how these types of rumors can be so easily spread by just a small
a seed,
just an inkling of like your friend hurting and projecting like being mad and feeling like maybe led on, even though it, again, your ego and all these things playing a role, and it turns into like he knew the whole time. He fucking Brandoned her, and like this is all about who knows. And Mari just comes in and just spreads that, and that's what the whole house hears.
I will say though, I realized in this episode, like Mari is a real girl's girl. Like she is there whenever there is someone who needs comforting. Mari is there, and I hadn't realized that. And it's like before I hadn't really noticed Mari, but I was like, oh, she's like very nurturing, and she takes on a very like supportive maternal role, which I was like, okay, shout out to Mari.
Well, she has throughout the entire season, actually, which I've noticed, and I thought that was really, really great and very commendable.
Totally,
she does like stick by the girls.
Okay.
Right, because I feel like before I hadn't thought much about her as a character, and then I realized that detail, and I was like, oh, okay, Mari, totally.
Yeah, and that's nice. I mean, being a girl's girl, great. I mean, we hope that it is tough, right? I think we even had that caller in the Ask Nick episode talk about gaslighting, and they're like, well, why would my friends think this and their friends think that? It's like, well, your friends have your back, And then I guess as in adulthood, we want to, as Bree pointed out last week, like, sometimes, like, just because they're your friends, you have to hold them accountable. But Mari, props to you for being a good friend. But throwing Noah under the bus.
But while also throwing Noah under the bus.
I don't think Mari meant anything by it.
I think she just had Abigail's back regardless, and that she was closer with Abigail, and she's going to take her side in that situation.
Yeah.
Especially when Abigail's processing in that moment, and she's devastated and crying, and she's like going through the gigs, and so Mari's obviously going to receive that and like oh my god, like Noah just effed her over when he told her she loved her last night.
Totally.
Like that's what it seems like, and honestly, you can like understand where Mari's coming from too.
Totally. And that's the thing. Like they're these good or bad. It's not good or bad people most of the time. It's just situations and rumors and drama.
Yeah.
And all those things. Next morning, we get into the breakups. Dean and Kayla are apparently the couple to remind us that paradise works. Love my friends, Dean and Kaylin. Fascinating couple to choose from. I think Dean and Kaylin were there like in his van driving down to Mexico, I think for his like, it was his brother's wedding or something. And it was like, hey, we're here. And I think they just kind of had him come.
That's so funny if that's what it is. Like, hey, we're already here. Might as well just pop on by.
No, literally.
I love that. The fact that they're just in the van, just like, hey, we're already here.
And the fact that you've been to the beach, near the beach for a wedding.
Well, we were there like
cousins.
a week later. From my cousin's wedding. Anywho, kind of fascinating because, like, if you watch Dean and Kaylin's season, they didn't go to the fantasy suite. Dean, like, left, broke up with her, came back, was like, hey, do you want to get out of here? They left together. Since then, they've had nothing but an untraditional relationship, which I think is great. And yet they here are Dean and Kaylin are the ones hyping up the kind of traditions of the show.
Yes.
And Dean couldn't be a more untraditional guy.
And it couldn't have been a more uncomfortable.
So much that like in the past couple months, you've seen Dean like, Dean loves to say like as a friend, I love him because he really loves to challenge the status quo. He loves to even say shit just to let it float because it's Dean. Dean has said recently, he's just like, Kaylin and I don't say the words I love you. Now, I don't know if that's just like a Dean thing and Kaylin's like, yeah, we don't say it. But Dean's here like saying like we've never been more in love, and it definitely felt like they were like reading a teleprompter, but there's no teleprompter.
So weird to me.
It was so poorly rehearsed.
It was literally like they were staring into a void and like not as if they weren't talking to people.
It felt like a state fair presentation. Be like, the great state of New York, also known as, like, it was very like,
it was
canned,
so like monotoned. And it wasn't, but and also like maybe like the people that they were talking to, like the contestants, weren't like giving the kind of energy, and so it was just like not a flow, and there wasn't like a easy kind of situation. But it did seem a little.
I feel like they're all in on it. Weird. They were like, "Hey, we're here to we're making a TV show here. Just
give us the script. Just we'll say our lines."
Literally. The cue card back there. I don't know, because it was very, like for example, when you're the Bachelor, the Bachelorette. When you come in and you give your speeches and you're like, hey guys, I've had a great week and there's been highs and lows and blah, 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 blah. Like what will happen is you will talk with your producer and be like, and the producer will be like, well, what do you want to say? And the producer's there to help you because as the lead, you're just going through so much. There's a million things going with in your head. They might even say, hey, like these are some thoughts I thought maybe you might want to say. What do you think? You could have as much input as you want or as little, like depending on, like I, for the most part, was like, I think I got it. Like, just remind me a couple of things. Yeah. And I'd go out there and I would say something. And it was just kind of like somewhat rehearsed, but then I would just kind of ad lib. And other times, I think other leads would just be like, I'm so tired. What do you want me to say? And they would do a good job of saying that and everything in between. And this had a very this is what they do, like, Dean and Kayla.
That's their ship name.
As opposed to Keen.
Dealin. They have him in the lead. They're just like, what do you want me to say?
Yeah, like, what do we do?
Very, very rehearsed, but whatever. I love them.
After I was here last time, I watched your entire season.
Oh, really?
I did. I loved it.
Oh, well.
It was so good. The volleyball episode really haunts me.
Yeah, yay for me.
It was so good.
Yeah.
I loved it.
So much drama.
so much shit.
But yeah, also Mari calls herself out for definitely being good for Mari. She's a fan of Paradise because she's like, what do you think happens? Mari's like, I'll tell you what, we're about to have these conversations and talk about whether we're going to a fantasy suite.
Yeah.
And so we get the handful of relationships that don't even require us to like sit through a breakup. But hey, we need 3 hours of this.
Yeah, it's like we know what's gonna happen.
It's the equivalent of like if I went on like 3 Hinge dates with someone and then I was like, we should talk about we're gonna be able to make this work together.
Not even 3.
Like 2.
1.
Yeah, it's like really these are the early infancy of relationships.
Why do we need to hear this Anna and James conversation? Like, we know you're not going to the fantasy suite.
Of course, we know that.
Yeah,
but I feel bad because Anna, I feel like she did want it to happen.
And she had that line where she was like, I would just really like for one thing to go right. And I get that. Like, when you just need a win.
Yes.
I know Anna really screwed the pooch on Matt James' season.
Yes,
and we were hard on her for doing, she did a shitty thing. She did a real human shitty thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like she's really humbled herself and she recognizes her mistake. And I felt myself definitely rooting for Anna.
I was too, and I didn't like her season when she was on Matt James. I was like, oh my god, I don't like her. But then when she came back, I feel like through the episodes, I'm like, oh, like I feel like actions speak louder than words, and like what she's doing to me presents a more changed, better version of her old self.
But nevertheless, I don't know why we had to listen to that.
Yeah, no, don't know why either.
All right, but the big question of all these breakups. That was an absolute fake cry performance by Thomas, right? That was all.
Do you think?
There was not. His eyes were dry.
There was no tears, though.
Nelly and I watched it back, and there wasn't. And that part of Mexico is incredibly humid. It's incredibly hot. We saw Thomas sweating up a storm.
Right.
And yet, in this moment, he could not have been drier.
Water. I was literally thinking that out, and honestly, I was trying to rationalize because I'm that type of person where I'm like, okay, maybe like, the heat's drying up the tears before they fall. Like, I'm literally thinking the stupidest things that are obviously not possible. But I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, why is your voice cracking so heavily and nothing's happening? I didn't get it.
We've been talking about Thomas since Katie's season of, he's been obviously the big part of conversation. He's hyperbolic. The response to him is hyperbolic. It's a fascinating case study. Here is this kind of Adonis, beautiful looking guy. Yes. I think part of the reason why we're so critical of Thomas is because he looks the way he does.
I think so too.
Like, I was like watching and be like, Trey and Thomas are kind of the same. When Abigail and Noah broke up, you had Thomas for no reason whatsoever saying things like, she's just like the best person girl ever, and just everything is always and ever and the most, and Trey would do stuff like that, but like Trey was like handsome gentleman, but not 6'5" and supermodel looking,
right?
And I think we are just like, shut the fuck up, Thomas,
because you're too fine.
You like the sound of your own voice, asshole.
Like you're too.
And when Trey's
fine.
Doing it, we're just like, oh, what a nice guy.
Color commentary, yeah.
I don't know, like Trey's cute and handsome, and Thomas is like this beautiful. And I wonder if like our criticism of Thomas, because even I was just like, shut the fuck up, Thomas. Yeah.
Well, it's also because he says weird things though. Like I genuinely will catch him saying, like, even with the Becca situation, he was like, I'm gonna put so much trust into you in this situation. I'm trusting you here, and it's like, well, like you have no other choice because like she's literally breaking up with you. So I'm confused.
Yeah. No. And then,
like, what are you trusting, girl?
And then he's like, I don't want to take anything away because maybe those were, but those are some dry eyes, and it seemed like he was really trying to like cry, but
it comes across like forced.
But he couldn't do it because I don't think Thomas is an idiot. I don't think he's dumb. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he really thought it. Also, here's the thing about this show, as Becca Kufrin would know, and I think everyone there kind of knows, like. They know, like, it is a TV show. Now, interestingly enough, they didn't have, like, daytime dates because maybe it's because they've already had enough. And, like, Wells canceling the cocktail party has really nothing to do other than the fact that, like, hey, we got enough.
Like, we have so much footage here, baby. We got to keep it
I also
moving.
love how, what did Thomas say it? Or someone said it was just like, obviously the main couples, the strong couples, they go, the strong couples, they're good. They've been hanging out the whole time. But the other strong couples, which are also known as not strong couples, haven't had the time to talk. As if they haven't been just sitting on a fucking beach
the entire time.
This having every opportunity to say whatever they want. But
maybe, did you think the one cocktail party was gonna the end all be all? Like, I'm confused. Like, what?
Right, and it's not.
You have all that time,
and it's not like like Bachelor or Bachelorette, where it's like you're making it to the next week, and the next week it's like this is the last week. Like, what does a rose matter at this point?
Yeah, it was.
Forget the
you're
rose.
You're either going to pursue each other outside of it. Exactly.
Literally, forget the rose.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying when it came to the Thomas and Becca thing, everyone kind of knows who's sticking around and who's going. So it kind of seemed like a really bad performance on the part of Thomas and Becca. And in fact, I'm pretty sure those two are still talking.
Yeah.
Didn't it show them at the end as like having reconciled?
Like, and they're hanging out.
It was like a weird, like...
It was like that TikTok trend, where it was like...
I loved those ending things, by the way. Like, they were like everything to me. Like, they were making me literally laugh.
Yeah, it's like at the end of a movie. Like,
Brendan and Piper in hiding, laying low. Like,
they literally make it sound like an escaped mob boss.
Yes, no, literally. I loved those ending things. They're making me die.
See the endings?
No. Are we talking about TikTok?
No, it was like at the end of the show they did like a
I didn't
like
watch.
A trailer.
Oh, I missed that.
Okay, so they did a trailer thing at the end
where
it was
like it?
Yeah.
Should I watch
it? You have to watch it.
So yeah, all the more reason why I feel like the Thomas and Becca breakup was just a really bad performance, as we found out at the end of the episode with the montage and the update of all the relationships. They're together and they conveniently found each other, are in love,
thriving.
And I don't even necessarily fault Thomas and Becca, because that's the part where they're kind of like, you have to break up and we need a breakup, so give us a breakup, because they know
they would though.
Well, what I'm saying is it's a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
They have a certain number of crews. They have a certain number of people to film these three
Right.
Have they ever had 4 fantasy suite dates in Paradise? They maybe have, but it's usually 3, if not always. So, do the math, so to speak. Are they just get lucky that there's only 3 couples that are in love? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think Becca and Thomas themselves, both as people, I think like to be very like prestige the way they go about things. So they probably don't want to be like a D-list couple in terms of like, or just in terms of like there's couples with clearly stronger connections, and so it's not really their style.
Also, here's my guess. Here's my guess is that they weren't willing to get engaged. One, I think Thomas would have been willing to get engaged. I think Thomas would have done fucking anything.
Thomas was like, I brought a ring day one on my person. This whole time.
And I didn't bracelet to match.
I didn't even realize this, but like Becca Kufrin, for all like the shit various members get on the show, including myself, but this would have been Becca's 3rd engagement. I've only been engaged once from this show. I mean, actual engaged. I mean, like saying yes.
Yeah.
And so this would have been, and Becca got screwed over by Ari, and then she got engaged to Garrett as a Bachelorette. But if she were to get engaged, this would have been her 3rd actual engagement from the show. And no one wanted that for Becca. Right. And I don't think Becca wanted that for herself. Yeah. So because she's not getting engaged, the show is rewarding the couples that are. And they knew... we're going to reward, we're going to focus on the couples who are going to get engaged. They have the benefit of hindsight. They know how it plays out when they choose to edit it the way it does and focus on the certain relationships.
Yeah.
They probably knew this going in. So when you wonder like why we literally saw nothing of, we saw no Thomas and Becca. I mean, all of a sudden they're breaking up and Thomas is crying and we barely saw them like at all. I think it has everything to do with the fact that they weren't going to get engaged, and it was like, you're not getting engaged, and we don't really need you to like leave you can always get back together, but it is that the show wants to make this about engagement, whether you agree with it or not. I have a question for the audience. Do we care? No, I mean, it's a serious question. Like I don't care, but I wonder for the people listening, do you care are you more invested with these? I guess that's the question. Are you more invested with these couples because they got engaged than if they didn't? Like if Joe and Serena once again were just like, hey, I really like you and I love you and like, let's keep dating. Would you care less?
That's a good question. I think that the idea of an engagement is there's like something about it that almost gives it more of a permanence to it. And it's like, you're excited about like a couple that you love getting engaged because it means that it's more genuine. Like it comes across that way. Like that's what it comes across. Like, 'cause it's like, oh, well, if you're getting engaged, that means you're truly in love. That's like kind of like society's picture that is painted for you for so long that it's like, oh, if you're getting engaged, you're really in love.
But we spend so much time talking about how it's clearly the bullshit.
Right, how there's a lot of broken off engagements in Bachelor world because the engagement is there's just a lower barrier to like entry for engagement on the show.
Well, and that's what I've said in the past, like as someone who's been on The Bachelorette and The Bachelor in Paradise, and I understand on Bachelor world, if you're one of 30 or 25, you're fighting against so many people for one person. And if you're the lead, you still really only like usually one. And so you're trying to get through and not and be as as empathetic and kind as possible. So by the time you get to the end, you really feel like you've gone to battle for this. So like and there's a clear pressure from the audience. Like it's less now, but historically, when the Bachelor didn't get engaged, the audience hated him. So there was an internal pressure. So with Paradise, that doesn't happen. It's never been the case. No one's like shaming anyone for choosing not to get engaged. So it just seems a little more showy to me when the couples are like, fuck it, let's just get engaged. Let's just see what happens. It feels less sincere.
Totally, because I think on The Bachelor or Bachelorette, the expectation is like you need a really good reason to not get engaged, but it's not like that on Paradise.
It's not. No.
But it's sort of like they are like, oh, I'm going to use any excuse I have to get engaged.
Yeah, and if you're Serena, you didn't have to like fend off 29 other women who are all falling in love with Joe, and you didn't have to deal with all watching these women go on dates with the guy you were falling in love with and feeling like that's how the Bachelor and Bachelorette work, is that you're sitting there being like, there is no way these people feel the way I do. And you're constantly have the benefit of comparison, even though that's not necessarily a positive thing. But in that world, that's how your feelings start feeling so like real and out of control. And that's why you get to the end and you're just like, I have been through so much with this person.
Literal war.
And
truly.
Not literal war. We don't want to compare it to literal war.
No, you're right. But it feels like a battlefield in a way.
But yes, that's how it feels. And here,
not literal war.
I feel like that. Watch that be a date in a few.
That's not what I mean.
Go to an
like I'm just trying to help you out.
You're right. You're totally right.
Sensitive times, and I don't need you. People getting mad.
Be
at you.
respectful to the veteran community.
But yes, and so it's kind of like, I'm just curious. Does from a Bachelor in Paradise audience, do we care? Maybe, and you made it sound like maybe you do, or subconsciously.
I think subconsciously I do. I think there's like something in the subconscious that I think I do care. Like, so I feel like it almost gives it more of a permanence to it, because you want them to succeed, and you feel like there's levels to it, and it's like, okay, well, engagement, marriage, and like there's like this like thing in society that's like placed this like, well, if you're truly happy, you would get married, right? And so I think that naturally you kind of want the progression to happen for them.
It's also like, I feel like there's right now with like hookup culture being really big, there's so few conversations and communication that is like required of you, but it feels like there's a sort of, when you're disclosing personal history, like engagement is one of the things you kind of have to tell someone. Like it's a big deal if you're dating someone and then you find out later on like, oh yeah, by the way, I called off an engagement. Like I feel like there's something about getting engaged that like crosses that bar where it's like kind of then for the rest of your life, a sort of thing you are societally sort of instructed to disclose to people.
That's kind of my point. And as someone who's been engaged on the show, and like I didn't get engaged to Caitlin or Andy, but like obviously, there's perceptions of how that all went down. I did not feel like I needed to disclose that for people who like maybe who weren't big fans of the show. I was like, yeah, it was whatever. And so, but nevertheless, you're right. And so I'm just wondering, like Joe, I know they're the king and queen of paradise and the prom, but Joe getting engaged kind of surprised me.
Really?
From like real life, yes.
Oh, like
Joe having been in this role before, having a real relationship with Kendall, like he didn't get engaged to Kendall, and yet Kendall will be someone that Joe thinks of as a legitimate ex-girlfriend who we might have met in the crazy atmosphere, but we had this I truly love this person. I chose to be with her because I wanted to be with her, not because we were afraid of what our expectations. He didn't get engaged to Kendall, and now he comes back, and as someone who's been in it before, Joe is less warped. I feel like, the bubble has less of an impact on people who are doing it again. And so Joe's decision to get engaged, even though like they are really cute together, like when Joe and Serena, like you can see a real like
a real connection,
like a real excitement from Joe, and I'm really happy for Joe, and I really like, but like he still was like, I don't know if it's gonna work out, but like I'm gonna put this engagement on my resume.
My permanent record is really what it is.
My permanent record. And I'm gonna hope it works out, even though like I've been dating this girl for 3 weeks and we haven't like, people like will like, I mean, I'm curious, like who do you think's gonna, of the 3 engaged couples, who do you think's gonna make it? Like, do you have an opinion?
I feel like Serena and Joe are gonna make it, and I feel like Riley and Marissa are gonna make it.
What are you basing this on?
Honestly, just like from their interactions in the show. I think that when it comes to like the way they look at each other, the way they feel about each other, the way they interact, I think it's like a combination of all those different things. And I think that when you see them being open with each other, you feel like, okay, got it. So if they're open here and they're making sure they get all like crossing the T's and dotting the I's, that in real life it's gonna hopefully work like that too, because look how authentic they're being here. So I think that's like kind of what makes me think that they're gonna make it more.
It's also when you talk about like adversity, like how Kenny and Mari are like, we've overcome such adversity. I think an actual example of adversity is like when Riley was really disappointed by his friend's behaviors. Like I think that's an example of like actually emotionally draining, an emotionally draining situation. Yes. And so for Marissa to like be there, see how he handled that and support him through that, I think is like an example of something that feels applicable to like real world relationship fodder.
It'll be interesting. The real answer is if they will make it, is it has nothing to do with their interactions on the beach. That's the real answer.
Yeah.
And I don't have the answer of if they will or won't, but I can tell you Riley and Marissa's ability to make this work, Mari and Kenny's ability to make this work, and Joe and Serena's ability to make this work has everything to do with their interactions after the show, right? We don't know what it was like for Mari to watch this back and watch Kenny and Demi and Kenny and Tia and I'm sure Kenny might have been like, hey, this happened. He could have been, but like as someone who's been in the show and watching it back, that can create drama and conflict. And so it will be the ability of those 6 people to actively decide to, hey, what we do know is we really like each other. That's real. And everything that happened on the beach, what we should do is just, all we should take from that is that there's something here and we should now start over, and not anything that might trigger us from the show, anything that might frustrate us, we should completely throw in the trash and start over and turn off Instagram comments and not care whether people like us or not. You know, Mari and Kenny shouldn't care that, you know, Joe and Serena are like the king and queen couple of, you know what I'm saying? Like
totally
little shit like that. And it sounds trivial, but that is the shit that like a lot of people will get sucked up into. So it really will depend. It will depend on how much these people are willing to make one another a priority in the real world. Like, is Serena going to move? Is Joe going to move? Is Riley and Marissa going to, like, where do they live? Things like that. All those things will have to do with whether they work out, and nothing that happened and no conversations that happened on the beach will have like an actual determination of whether they work out. Interesting.
In the real life.
In real life.
And I guess on the topic of Joe and Serena, what did you make of the last Kendall hurrah?
I liked it. I liked that. I liked it for Kendall. I liked it for Joe. Interestingly enough, this is one of those moments where I'm really, honestly, you know what I'm curious about? I'm wondering what Kendall thinks of it, because it was my understanding that she was asked to come down and do this. There was a lot of resistance from Kendall of whether she wanted even to bother. It was a lot like, I don't want to get between these two. I don't want to, like, if Joe's going to get engaged to Serena, I don't want to be a part of it. I just like, And my understanding is that things were said, and maybe she might have been led to believe that they weren't going to get engaged. And I think Kendall might have been frustrated after she went and had this conversation with Joe. And I feel like I've heard Kendall might have been frustrated for these past several months of wishing she didn't go down there. And yet, watching it back, I thought it was a really great moment for the both of them. I think it was the show trying to put a nice, clean, like, closure on this. I think Kendall looked much better leaving that beach there than she did 2 weeks ago.
Absolutely.
I love that for them. I thought everything Kendall said was sincere and from the heart, and it was a nice, like, she seemed gracious and happy for Joe, and it seemed like a healthy conversation. And I really quite liked it. And I wonder if Kendall will watch that back and say, I've been mad at the producers for 4 months, but thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for the closure.
I'm really curious.
Yeah. No, I agree. I thought it was great. At first, when she was walking out, I was like, oh my God. Like, I was nervous when I was watching her walk down. I was like, oh my God, what's she going to say? Don't do it, please.
I thought she was going to be like, I'm moving to Chicago. Like, I thought she was going to finally be like, I've thought about it and I'll move to Chicago.
Oh my God. I would literally fucking scream.
Like, what a time to
What do you think Joe would say? He'd be like, okay, and?
I think Joe had moved on.
I think so too.
I think if she'd said it, right. I think when she was like, "Hey, butthead," at the beginning,
my
I think
God.
if she'd said it then and there
She had a
before
shot.
Joe had really developed his relationship with Serena, like I think he would have considered like getting back together with her.
I agree.
I think you might be right, but I do think Joe and Serena really like each other. I think he is very excited about her. I really believed, when Joe and Serena talk, and he's just like, I really saw it with you. You see a genuine excitement. It's really endearing.
Too.
Like
I that's exactly how I felt.
This episode was a lot of like, oh God, these conversations are so silly and ridiculous. And yet when Kenny and Mari and Riley and Marissa and Joe and Serena would talk, I'd be like, fuck, that's cute.
Yeah. I agree.
Like I really.
You feel like you feel genuine vibes from them.
Yeah.
I like just root for them at the end.
Yeah, you root for them. I'm rooting for them.
I mean, it wasn't like, as someone who's like dating someone who's younger than me, I don't know if Kenny and Mari and Joe and Serena really represented this community the way I hoped.
The community of age gap.
Community of a large age gap.
Because it was such a cliche of like Kenny being like I loved Kenny was just like, I've had some fun. Like I've
lived
like
my life.
I've really enjoyed.
I've colored. Yeah, I've lived my life.
And then, like, what is Mari gonna say? But like, I'm mature than most, and maybe she very much is. We don't know really Mari's backstory, but it was just like Natalie and I watching it, and we looked at each other and we're like, not the spokesman we were looking for.
Not what we were expecting for the age gap. I mean, because they have a large age gap, like specifically Mari and Kenny.
25 and 40.
About the same age. And then Serena and Joe, about
23 and 35.
Yeah, so essentially
you're right,
pretty large.
Yeah.
But whatever. I mean, it's all fun and games.
Yes.
I couldn't help but wonder, like, is Kenny really in this, or is Kenny just like going through the motions? When they walked into the fantasy suite and Kenny goes, "Oh, this is like bigger than my apartment." I couldn't help but wonder, was Kenny being like, "Hey Mari, FYI, I'm poor and broke, and I am not. I'm not like, I don't know. I think maybe you want to think twice about like falling in love with me because I have a really shitty apartment, and by the way, like
little seeds.
I've had a lot of sex, and maybe you want to like reconsider falling in love with me."
Yeah,
I couldn't tell, but I felt like maybe Kenny was trying to get out of it, but maybe not.
I think they're a little too far gone at that point. If you're going into the fantasy suites and you're like, "Hey, my apartment's small," I think you're like, "Okay, I think we're already here. We're already past that point."
You're like, Kenny and Mari are key. They love to say, I don't know why, but we do. Like, we can't articulate any feelings, but we're in love. And Joe and Serena loves to say, just every day it's just better and better. Like, they don't really say why, but they're like, Serena's line is how better it is each day. And
it's actually really cute seeing Serena, like in this episode specifically, like kind of like cry in her interviews of like just because she's so happy, and I think that comes off so genuine. I really think that she feels that.
That was a sweet moment.
It's so sweet.
It got me teared up. Like I got a little. I felt it in the throat when Serena, like I'm just so happy because I didn't expect it. That felt like a real nice moment.
Yeah.
Especially because Serena has been like trapped. Like she left on Matt James's season. Like she's been very controlled and measured, and like she's kept her shit together in a very real way in a lot of scenarios where it's very hard to keep your shit together.
Very good. Good point. That Serena on Matt James season was top 4. That's just hometowns. So historically, that would just like that. You would understand why Serena would be sucked in the bubble and just wait for Matt James not to pick her. And I think Matt really liked her.
I think she had a shot.
I think she had a shot, and she was like, nah. And so yes, she is someone who's shown the ability to not get as easily sucked in, and yet here she is with Joe. I do think there's something about Riley and Marissa that seems like more fairy tale and more like the combination of, I don't know, there's a sincerity, the way they both are like here to like, I feel like they really complete each other in a way that we at least didn't get to see with the other couples.
Well, what did we think of Riley's little psych out before the fantasy suite?
Whatever. I think he's just having fun.
I do too. I think that he's literally just like shooting the shit with her so that she knows that like he's a jokester.
Totally.
And I think that's like how his personality is.
And I think we saw in that moment like how she didn't like, and Marissa did not like freak out or anything, but like you could see she was like spooked in a real way that I think was like further indicative of how they have this like rock solid connection. Absolutely. That she was like going to be shaken up by it, but she didn't immediately freak out like the second he said something.
Yeah. I mean, if you're sucking his toe, you know it's really real. Yeah. Like it's real.
Well, I think what it speaks to is how intense that world is and how you can have the Maris and the Marissas and I guess the Serenas of the world be talking about engagement and simultaneously acknowledging just how fragile their relationship is. Like they're acknowledging they have very little to go on. Like, because otherwise, why would, like Serena, to her credit, like it didn't even flinch for Serena. Like when Joe kind of did the same thing. He was fucking with her a little bit.
Yeah, and she's like, don't fuck with me.
And she was like, whatever.
Yeah, she's like, okay.
She's like, nah.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, props to Serena for that. But that's an acknowledgement of them saying like, you know, that's that strongest couple bullshit. We're all laughing like, what does that have anything to do with your relationship? But because in reality they have such little to go on, and yet the stakes are so high talking about an engagement, that's why you see that juxtaposition. The Aaron and James bromance, the only thing I loved about it is that it was the kind of the first and only time the show pointed out that this is a fucking show.
Yeah.
You know?
I loved it.
I loved it.
Yeah, and also you look at like, I feel like all the people who are Bachelor alumni, like the lasting relationships are the friendships made on the show.
Yes.
Like those are the ones that last for a lifetime.
But it was the show through the edit, through the soundtrack, through everyone having a good time with it. Different soundtrack, different stakes. Tia not being in on it. Aaron could have looked like the biggest douchebag in the world. And yet it was lovable and great, and everyone was just in on it.
Yeah.
And it was like such a like an acknowledgement of how silly their relationship was, because there was no relationship. It was also no different than James and Anna, and yet the stakes were shown completely different. And I love that the show for a split second was like, yeah, this is a silly TV show.
But on that, this is reminding me that we haven't even talked about the fact ever that Aaron hooked up with Tia, who James was pursuing. Like his best friend was pursuing.
And neither of them gave a shit.
And this is Aaron, Mr. like loyalty.
Mad
like,
about everyone for everything.
Yes.
And then his literal best friend, like he hooks up with his best friend.
Made out.
Kisses. Exchanges a little smooch with his best friend's girl, and it's like not a big deal at all.
Yeah. I mean, James carved like a block of wood to make a landscape of New York, and then and Aaron
kissed her at prom.
Yeah. And yet they're not mad about it.
Not a big deal. They're leaving together.
And Aaron almost like tried to like beat up Ivan.
Yeah, for the Chelsea situation,
for doing literally the same thing.
But it's because they're bros.
I wonder if I really wonder if Aaron. I hope for Aaron this was like, I hope he's able to look back, have a good time, and made a good friend, acknowledge that like I was kind of petty, a little immature, and maybe this is a growth opportunity for him. Again, I'm sure he's a nice guy. He was very charming in that moment with James. I really liked that he was having fun. I liked I'll get your number. Like that was my favorite part where he goes to Tia, I'll just get your number later, because you know what? The world goes on after we leave this beach.
There's more. I love that Tia's like, I fucking hate you, and just like ran away. It was so funny to me.
It was great. I loved it. I love that we brought just a little bit of like calmness to the storm that has been Bachelor in Paradise all season long.
You know, and I'm always here for a guy holding another guy walking down the beach. So
totally,
I was game. I was very there for it.
Moving on.
Nick's like, no comments.
You're like, Nick's this is not that podcast.
Manny, thank you so much.
Of course.
For recapping this episode with me. Please tell my audience about your new podcast.
Oh yeah, I have a podcast now too. It's called Full Coverage, FOOL. Because me and my best friend, we just kind of shoot the shit. We hang out, and I genuinely feel like I'm less nervous this time than last time because I have a podcast now.
I thought you were great.
Thank you.
We'll have to have you back for another recap down the road.
Absolutely. I love a good recap. I really do.
Thank you guys for listening. Be sure to check out Manny's podcast. Be sure to keep listening because we have a truly fantastic episode coming up next. The wonderful Emily DiDonato is with us talking about all things from motherhood, and how she met her husband, skincare, the modeling industry. We
love to see it.
Stereotypes. Just a really wonderful episode. Very introspective person Emily is, and truly just a charming, lovely human. And I think you'll really enjoy that episode. So keep listening. Don't forget to send in your questions at asknick@castme.com, cast with a K. And if there's nothing else, well, just keep listening. Hey guys, thanks for watching, but before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss any future videos, like our Monday's Ask Nick, especially if you're looking for some relationship stories and relationship advice, as well as our Wednesday interviews with your favorite celebrities and experts. See you next time.